Hey there, Popcorn Squad. Thanks for joining us on the show today. We have a very, very special episode for you guys. We have somebody awesome. My name is Christian. I'm one of your hosts.
My name is Juan. Today, we have our good friend, Sean O'Connell. Look at him. He's right there.
I felt like I needed
the whole time
jump in and introduce myself.
Right? No. We're excited to have you on the show. A little bit of background on who Sean is, guys. Sean is the managing director over at CinemaBlend. He is a co-host on the ReelBlend Podcast. His stuff is incredible. We'll put a couple of links in the description below to his stuff so you can go ahead and check it out. And not only is he a part of that, but he has a book coming out very, very soon that you're going to want to check out. It's really cool. It's called Release the Snyder Cut. We'll get into a little bit more details on what the book is and what it's about. But Sean, thank you so much for joining us today, man.
Oh, guys, thank you so much for having me on. I mean, honestly, this is the most fun part of it right now is the run up to the book and getting to jump on shows and just geek out about all things Snyder and all things Justice League and whatever's ongoing in the DCEU. It's one of those stories that's kind of never ending, and it allows us to talk endlessly about all the twists and turns that are happening. So let's get into it.
Awesome. So I know that you are the managing director at CinemaBlend, but I want to know, can you tell us a little bit more about your role there and like what is it that you do there?
Yeah, sure. That's evolved a lot over the years that I've been there. Started as a news writer for them and worked my way up to editor. And now as managing editor, we've grown the team so much and everybody's sort of found their niche and their role. And one of the things that I do for them is on-camera stuff, things for the YouTube channel, things for on-site video. So I enjoy talking and being able to get into conversations with people like this or just express your opinion pieces. But I'm also doing the podcast, like you mentioned, and running ReelBlend on a weekly basis, jumping in and grabbing stories we like to write stories when it's like a specific, almost like a beat, like a newspaper beat that people would have. Okay. So people have specialties. We have a guy who's like an expert James Bond person. So anytime a Bond story sort of rolls around or clearly we have a ton of Star Wars and Marvel, fans, so they'll grab certain stuff. And then over time, due to all of this, it feels like the Snyder Cut has truly become my beat. So the moment something happens, I snap into work, and I'm very quickly with it. So, but yeah, that's kind of what I do there.
That's cool. I'm glad because I am up to date with everything on the Snyder Cut because of all the different channels that report on it, but also especially with you and Hannah's a series that you guys going on. It's great. I love it. I love watching it. I love the interjections of all the movie stuff. Hannah, I'm assuming she edits them. I think she said.
She is, yeah. I mean, the best part about that is watching how she has evolved from starting that. She's a truly gifted editor by herself. But she has, because of this series, really immersed herself in the DC movies and has a full-blown catalog of like clips. And literally, she showed me an Excel spreadsheet that is a breakdown of every line of dialogue from all the DC movies, so that when she knows that she wants a character to say something, she can just search it on this Excel spreadsheet and it gives her the timestamp. Of where she can punch it in. And when I tell you, like, she started as a total, like, not, fanatic DC person. And now she literally like bores her family and boyfriend to death with like conversations about the Snyder Cut. And like, her boyfriend joined Twitter and started following her. And then all of a sudden got recommended to follow like a bunch of Snyder Cut people. And he turned to her and he was like, "What did you get me into? Like, I don't even know what's going on." That's so what happened. Right, the movement just pulls you in, and it sweeps you up in the enthusiasm for it.
Oh, that is awesome! I have a new respect for any editor, especially her, who goes through that. I recently did a video, an MCU recap of WandaVision and everything leading up to it, and to find the specific quips and quotes that I wanted to interject. That's the longest part of the editing process. So I'm going to have to take a note from her and do that Excel spreadsheet. And I'm going to have to do it for all kinds of different things. That's really smart. That's awesome.
It was scary in a way. Like when I saw it and I was like, "You did this?" That's good. Great, but I'm a little worried right now.
That's good. That's good.
Oh man. Well, I have a quick question, so I'm an actor, so I like to I'm always starstruck by a lot of things that I see, a lot of people that I see, directors, and all that. And I was just wondering, I mean, do you get starstruck? Like, is there somebody that you were like, you know what, when I interviewed that person, I was nervous or I was scared or something?
Yeah, it's never not weird, honestly. It's always kind of nerve-wracking. It's gotten a lot better over the years. I've been doing this almost 20 years. But there's still the butterflies that happened before. It used to be so the situation's really different now, if you guys even want to hear this. You'd fly around and do all of this in person, so you would be face to face with somebody. And now we've, for the past year, have been doing it on Zoom. And then that's harder because it's out of your control. Like then you're at the mercy of technology, and the connection has to go well. And, and there's an awkward bit of like, can you hear me? Are you muted? Like what's going on? Yeah. So you got to get past all of that. I do miss the face-to-face. There's still plenty of people that you're across from. There's weird moments now because I've been doing it for as long as I have been. I've absolutely gotten to a point where I can look at, A-list celebrities, big time people, and say to them, like, they're just people, they are literally just people.
Yeah.
Some of them are not. Some of them truly are like the above and beyond, like there's certain people who are from our childhood who are like really ingrained in your personality. And then when you're sitting across from them, you stop for a minute and you're like, wait a second, you're the actual guy, like you're the person who I've been watching all this. This isn't a replica, no one's cosplaying. You're the person. And it takes you out of it a little bit, but
no, I'm sure that is weird because, like, honestly, even right now, as we're talking to you, I watch your show so much that I listen to your voice so much. So now that I'm talking to you and I'm like looking into the camera,
it's like surreal.
Well, it's not surreal. It is surreal, but it's also like I'm not listening to a podcast of his. I'm talking to him.
You're talking to him.
Yeah. You know what? Like sometimes I think we need to disconnect as a society every once in a while. Yeah. They're like, oh, there's people there. Hey.
Yeah. No, seriously. So Sean, you're a movie buff. I know that. I can just tell from everything. But specifically, I've noticed over the time that I've seen your content online that you're a comic book movie buff, a big comic book movie buff. There's no doubt about that. You have the posters in the background of Infinity War and Endgame, which I've heard you say before that combined they're the greatest movie of all time.
Boy, did I get ripped to shreds for that, didn't I?
Did you really? Dude, okay, I'm a DC fan all the way, right? Like I'm like rooting for DC, but I love Marvel and everything they do. They're so great. So I'm with you on that, man. I'm with you on that. But is there? I'm assuming that's what drove you to the entertainment business entirely, as being a movie buff. But I had a quick question about comic book movies for you. So, were you a comic book fan before you fell in love with comic book movies, or did it happen like vice versa? You fell in love with the comic book movies and then became a comic book fan. Do you even like comic books more than you do the movies?
Yeah, no, that's a terrific question. I grew up reading and collecting comics. Like I was literally, bagging them with cardboard backings, and I had, the long white cardboard boxes with collections, and I read mostly Marvel. Spider-Man is my go-to guy. I grew up on X-Men comics and Fantastic Four comics, and then I read a lot of DC as well too, but didn't put in the time to collect as much DC.
Okay.
And I never actually stopped to think why. I don't know. I just sort of gravitated to Marvel first and foremost. Then I went through a period where I stopped collecting when I went to college and graduated college and was trying to find work. I just stopped spending money on comics because it's an expensive habit.
Oh, it's so expensive. Yeah. Yes.
But I didn't think at the time that I was putting in all of that work to build up a base of knowledge for stuff that would become so relevant later in my career. It's kind of ridiculous that this genre that I loved, that has become the prevalent film genre for 20 some odd years during my professional career. And we laugh all the time at CinemaBlend where we're like, about job security, it's just like, oh, Marvel and DC have laid out the next 10 years. And I'm like, well, thank God. And I'm not going anywhere. This is fantastic because when someone turns around, if for other people who have no idea, and then they're like, hey, Cheetah and Maxwell Lord are the new villains for Wonder Woman. Does anybody know anything about them? And then like, 2 or 3 of us raise our hands. Like, yeah, I can tell you a whole lot about them. Like, and because you just have that knowledge, that background knowledge. So part of the reason why I love the comic book genre in general, and not even just the successful ones from the past 20 years, but everything that they've been trying to do since the late 80s and into the 90s. I've been fascinated by seeing these characters who we adore realized in live action. And I will be fascinated by any interpretation, no matter how good or bad. You know, like when I sit down for the evening and turn on one of the streaming services, I'm always going to some type of superhero content. Like literally just this morning to put on something, I put on Singer's first X-Men movie. You know, just to sort of go through and watch some scenes, or I'll watch Josh Trank's Fantastic Four adaptation, you know, and I'll be able to now like skip through a bunch of things, you know, because I don't have to sit there, but I'll go back to the scenes that I want to see play out again. Because I love seeing them physically realized. I love seeing, and then so then what has brought me back around to it, that's made me really happy, is I got a tablet and I now have Marvel Unlimited and the DC Universe.
Nice.
And it's been tremendous to go back through that catalog and catch up on all the stuff that I missed. And I'll happily pay that monthly subscription to not have to go back and buy physical books. And I know, believe me, that the tangible feeling of a book is still tremendous. But if you looked around my room, the walls are closing in on me as it is. I don't know where I'd put books at this point now, too. And so the apps have been tremendous, and being able to go back and see all that stuff has been phenomenal.
Yeah, they are, definitely. I know that, like, my wife always tells me, like, all right, we're going to need a bigger place already, because seriously, your boxes of all your comic books, it needs to stop. And I'm like, it's not going to stop because
you don't understand.
I love them. Yeah, I'm like, this is my life. Like, I love this. Please.
Can I tell you guys a really sad story?
What?
Yeah.
All right. So I collected comics for years upon years, right?
Okay.
And I had, again, boxes and boxes and boxes of them. And I was away at college, and I was going to be getting married. And I thought, okay, well, I'm gonna finally sell my collections. You know, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna come home. My family was in New York. I'm gonna come home to New York, sell my collections. I had the comic book shop that I'd been buying from forever. The guy was on the hook to go through my collection and purchase whatever he's gonna purchase. And by this point, I'd had a lot of really good stuff, really good stuff that I bought firsthand when stuff dropped, and it just held on to them in the best condition possible.
Like key issues.
Key issues, yes, significant issues.
Okay.
And I got home, and my father said, "Oh, I did you a favor. I started selling your books for you." And I said, "What are you talking about?" So he said, I was talking to a guy in the neighborhood who, you know, is a comic book collector also, and I mentioned you were going to start selling your books, and so he asked to come in and take a look at them. And he went through literally and cherry picked every valuable issue that you could think of, and gave my father fill in the blank cash. I don't even remember what it is.
Yeah.
But I'm talking like, you know, Amazing Spider-Man 252, you know, just like samples like that. And I was like, you have to be kidding.
Like, no. These are like hundreds of dollars worth of comics, possibly thousands.
And the guy paid like face value for them. Like, so then like, okay, so that's a kick in the gut, right?
Yeah.
But then on top of that, I had to bring what I had left to the comic book shop still, and have the guy flip through my collection, you know, and go like, where is so-and-so? Like, he goes, you do know that you're missing everything of value in here, right?
He's like, there's nothing that's worth.
Yes, I understand. I got pillaged. So,
oh no.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that would be the absolute worst. I'm so sorry that happened to you.
Yeah, I'm really sorry, Sean. Yeah, that really hurt me, man.
Thanks for making me relive that, guys.
Oh man. Hey, so just really quick, just gonna talk about. So you made a book called The Snyder Cut, right? And it's about Zack Snyder. So I wanted to ask you, what got you into Zack Snyder? Was it the DC movies that he made, or were you a Snyder fan before that? Like, did you watch a movie like 300 or Dawn of the Dead or something like that?
Yeah, I liked a lot of Snyder's movies. I wasn't a diehard fan of his. I appreciated a ton of I loved his Dawn of the Dead. I loved Watchmen, and I loved 300. When I got to his Man of Steel, it was not the kind of Superman movie that I was looking for. And so I was lukewarm on it. And there's still elements of it that I don't necessarily agree with. And then with BVS, I liked it more. and I thought it was really good. Gave it a 3.5 out of 5 in my review for CinemaBlend, and said like, oh, this is a really good foundation on which, you know, the DCU can sort of build. But when I was covering Zack's contributions to DC, I was more covering it as somebody who was writing for CinemaBlend and tracking the progress and the construction of a cinematic universe, because that's what interested me more than some of his character choices. Like, I was really curious to see how Warner Brothers was going to get to a point where they were catching up to Marvel, which is what I really thought that they were trying to do.
Yeah. And I think they were probably at one point or another.
They were, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I've gone back over the course of rewatching those movies, Man of Steel and BVS. And then, of course, with Ultimate Edition, when Ultimate Edition came out, and I saw the way that it filled in the gaps and addressed a couple of the concerns that I had, I was like, oh, this is a much better movie. You know? In a little bit like, why wasn't this shown? Yeah. And then the reason that there was a better, longer cut of BVS meant to me that whenever anybody said, oh, there's probably a better cut, a longer cut of Justice League, I was always like, oh yeah, just like with BVS, like there's probably some Ultimate Edition of Justice League that he's got. So, but in writing this book, I've gone back to rewatch Man of Steel and BVS and go through the eyes of his true fans who've really helped me to recognize, like, I didn't ever look at Man of Steel as a true like immigrant story until I heard some of his fans describe it to me. Like, this is why I relate to this version of Clark. You know, that he's a stranger in the strange land type thing, which I know is part of the mythology of Superman.
Yeah, definitely.
But I've not seen somebody lean as heavily into that. You know, it's always been like the Blue Boy Scout kind of thing. And Zack gets to that, you know, but he goes through a lot more to get to it. So I've come to appreciate his contributions to DC a lot more, but loved his films prior to that. So.
Yeah, definitely. Zack, you know, he's an interesting filmmaker. He's one of my favorites. When I saw Man of Steel, it's funny, you like BVS more than Man of Steel. I like Man of Steel more than I do BVS. And that's that I love BVS. I do. I love all of Zack's work. But when I saw Man of Steel, you know, I've never been a Superman fan. I never have. And I think it was BVS that truly really got me into comic books. Like, I was like, I want to know more about these characters. Like, I want to know if everybody's gripes about these characters are true, or if there is versions of these characters that look like what I saw on screen. And so when I saw Man of Steel, I mean, I don't know. It was such a Jesus story, you know, like that's what it is, it literally is the story of Jesus all the way through into BVS. And so I was like, it's as on the nail as possible. And so I was like, this is interesting. This is so cool. It's these beings are such godlike figures. And so I absolutely fell in love with his work. And so when I saw Justice League, I was probably something similar to you. I was like, there's got to be something that's different than this, that is better than this. This doesn't look a whole lot like what BVS looked like. This doesn't look a whole lot like what Man of Steel looked like. So when you watch Justice League, and you know, there's parts of me that whenever I think about posts that I made about Justice League when it first came out, I cringe because I tried to defend it like with all my heart. Like, I was just like, guys,
Stockholm syndrome, it happens.
Yeah. And I was just like, it's good, but deep down inside, I was like, it's not as good as the other ones, you know? But was there a moment when you either were watching Justice League or when you saw somebody put the hashtag out that said release the Snyder Cut or something? What was the moment that made you say, this is such an interesting story, I need to tell this story, I need to write a book about it?
So with the movement, it was being in San Diego in 2019 and I was fully aware of the release the Snyder Cut hashtag.
Okay. And
I knew that people were calling for it. But prior to that San Diego Comic-Con in 2019, it was just like, oh, that's kind of funny, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, look at, and again, I was on their side in that I believed like, oh yeah, I'm pretty sure Zack does have another version, you know, because of the way that he left the film.
Yeah.
And then you would hear little bits of confirmation about how much stuff was reshot. And you, I mean, if you watch the actual cut, you know, from the opening moment, you know, that you see Henry's face, you know that this is wrong. That all of it's wrong. But I truthfully didn't stop to truly analyze like scene by scene, and now to this point I have. Like, there are so many things in that that I think the entire opening credits monologue, like that song, if you go back and read all the lyrics to that song that was chosen, is just a full-blown confessional of just like, you know, the ship was sinking, and you know, all these lyrics that say like this was a disaster from the get-go, and
everybody
the homeless
knows.
guy with pride sign, you know, is just like that is as much of a confessional as anything I've ever seen in my entire life.
Seriously. Yeah.
But in San Diego in 2019, I saw, I was walking around downtown covering Comic-Con, and I would see bus stops with posters wrapped with release of Snyder Cut. And it was the silhouette of the team, and it was quotes from, I believe they had Kieran Hines. Oh, Kieran Hines.
Yeah.
And Zack and Jason Momoa. And they said things like, you know, I've seen the Snyder Cut, it's sick, and 3.5 hours, you know, the full story. And I was like, man, what's going on here? Who are these guys, kind of thing? And I knew a guy who was a friend of a friend who was pretty immersed in the movement. And I would hear things through my friend of like, they think it's happening, or they're working on a video and they're gonna put something together. And then I heard them say that they were trying to get the Times Square billboard in October of 2019 that was going to coincide with New York Comic-Con.
Yeah, that's right.
I said, all right, dude, put me in touch with your friend. Like, I want to start asking him a couple of questions. I want to find out like what is going on here, you know? And it just kicked the door open. It really showed me how unified the movement was, how focused they were on this finish line, that it was a fight for artistic integrity, and it was a fight for the people who had worked on Zack's movie, but also this push for suicide prevention and the monies that they raised for AFSP. Like, all of these elements just became so interesting to me. And then the more I started to pay attention to it, the more I realized how much the movement was also being slagged by sort of drive-by people who didn't necessarily get it and wanted to just lob critiques at the entitled Snyder And then I started to get angry about that, you know, and I was like, that's a snap judgment that's totally unfair. And I thought, okay, let me start to tell this story. And it's been a wild, 18 months so far. It's been a while. It takes a while to shop the book around too.
I'm sure.
So you put a proposal together and you just start shipping it out to potential publishers or literary agents.
Yeah.
And you just get rejected by I mean, you can't hear no enough, you know?
Yeah.
You hear a lot of like, oh, this is an interesting story, but I'm not sure there's enough there for the book, or for a book. Or they'll say like, oh, it's just not what I'm looking for, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then every couple of rejections, you get somebody who says like, oh, can I see a chapter? Can I see a chapter or two? I want to see what's there.
Yeah.
And that's always just enough to sort of thread you along and say like, oh, someone's interested, let me try to put this together. And then all those sort of beats came together until I found the right publisher.
Dang, that's awesome. Man. Yeah, I can relate to that. As an actor, I get a lot of no's my whole life. So it's just like, it's a long list of no's. And then there's that like one person that's like, but you did good. And you're like, man, maybe this will keep me going, and just gives you that inspiration, man.
That little bit keeps you going, I'm telling you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. So I know that we've been talking about the Snyder Cut a lot, and, but I'm pretty sure most of the people that are going to listen to this know what that is. But just for those who don't know what the Snyder Cut is, can you tell us a little bit about it and dive deep into how you talk about it in your book?
Yeah, for sure. So Zack Snyder had directed Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman, and he was hard at work on a Justice League film, which was going to unite for the first time on screen the top DC heroes. You were going to get Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, the Flash, Cyborg, and Aquaman all together against a villain called Steppenwolf. And it was the third film in what Zack has viewed as a 5-film arc that he was planning out. But somewhere between the release of Batman versus Superman and Zack being able to release his Justice League, the films were not doing as well at the box office as Warner Brothers hoped. And, not that anyone has ever really come out to confirm this 100%, but you could tell that they thought Batman versus Superman was supposed to be $1 billion film. Like by that point, the industry standard for comic book movies had become $1 billion.
Exactly.
Marvel was just, dropping $1 billion movies, like like
left and
crumbs
right.
on their table. Like,
Yeah.
oh, what? We're going to do a third Iron Man? Here you go. $1 billion.
No problem.
Warner Brothers, rightfully so, looks at a combination of Batman and Superman together for the first time on screen, and it's also going to introduce Wonder Woman, and they're like, this has to be $1 billion. And when it wasn't, they panicked. They got really worried. So you knew that they wanted to change gears and shift away from Zack's vision. And then Zack ended up having a tragedy in his family where his daughter, Autumn, at that time, died by suicide. So he was going to step away from the project. They got a replacement director to come in, and the theatrical cut of Justice League that came out was just an abomination by every standard.
Yeah.
It just didn't work at all. And from that day, the day it dropped, November 17th, 2017, fans of DC, fans of Zack Snyder, they all coalesced around this idea, this belief that there was an alternate cut of Justice League, that there was a Snyder cut. And for years, they spent time debating how long might the cut be, how much is involved in the cut. First, it was under the impression that it was 214 minutes long.
Yeah.
Now Zack is telling everybody it's 4 hours long.
Yeah.
Current debate is it a 4-hour miniseries of 4 1-hour episodes? Is it a true 4-hour movie? Is it going to be both? There's still some mystery revolving around it. But when you hear the Snyder cut, it means the pure, unfiltered version of Justice League that Zack did not get to release in 2017 and is now able to bring to HBO Max in March, we believe. We don't have a confirmed date yet, and I don't know why.
I don't know why either. It bugs me. But you know what? I'm excited about it. Thank you so much for diving into that. I know some people who watch our show know about the Snyder Cut probably because they're my friend. And that's all I talk about. If you're ever around me, literally, if you're ever around me, they're like, yeah, did you go have that hot dog today? I'm like, you mean the Snyder Cut? What? Like everything.
Yeah.
So it's been my life. Time, but thank you for diving into that. Sean, I know that we don't have much more time. Is there anything that we should know about your book moving forward? I know you said it comes out March 1st.
Yeah, I want to let people know that while it's really heavy into DC and Zack Snyder and Justice League, it is also just, I think, a really uplifting story about fans and fandom, and how good can come from fans who get together to unite behind something that they're totally passionate about. And so you don't have to necessarily be a diehard comic book person and comic book movie person to get something out of this story. The more I talk to the people in the movement, their emotional connections to Zack and his material, to each other in the movement, you hear some really strong familial bonds that are forged by people in the movement. And so if you love movies, and if you're super passionate about movies and storytelling, I think that you're going to find a way into the story of the Snyder Cut movement, because it's truly unprecedented what they accomplished. And if I had set out to tell this story and I found a group of, bratty, entitled, spoiled people who really were demanding something they thought that they should have gotten, I would have written that story. And it's not that I didn't get that at all. And so I was really happy to tell the story of the strength and passion of fandom, and I hope it comes through in the book.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Sean, thank you so much for giving us the time today. We appreciate you being on the show. Guys, that's it. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you in the next one.